Remember the height of quarantine when all we did was rot in our bedrooms trying to figure out which TikTok bedroom we'd all sleep in? Those were some good times. But if you think about it realistically, those months were probably miserable for most of us. My time in quarantine had me getting legitimately fat, but I speak for the majority when I say we'd all take that any day over being a member of society. I don't know if the cause of lockdown was the government plotting from the shadows, a viral leak from some scientific laboratory, or if it really was a Chinese dude eating a bat at the market like some dudes were saying. And I'm obviously not the most qualified person to speak on this because I'm a YouTuber, but man, what I can say is at this point, I'd be willing to sacrifice myself and personally fly all the way to China and eat a few bats of my own if that's what it really takes to bring back the good days. So let's go back 1 week prior to the COVID lockdown on that last day of school before spring break 2020. Lil Uzi had finally dropped Eternal Atake and everyone was listening with their AirPods in class, waiting for that sweet week off of school. During those days, there was some talk of the coronavirus, but nobody really took it too seriously at this point. We didn't think it was gonna spread over to the United States, and as students, we didn't really care. The only thing that we wanted to do was not go to school. So once school actually did get off, there wasn't a second of downtime before the gang all hopped on Fortnite with an entire week ahead of us to grind for the golden Ronaldo skin, blissfully ignorant of what was to come. Now personally, I had actually gotten myself into quite the peculiar situation during week 1 of spring break, because on the first day before any kind of lockdown was announced, I got on a bus and left. So when the lockdown was officially announced, I had to stay at the homie Tony's house for a whole week until I could catch a bus home, and that officially began the first week of lockdown. At this point, it wasn't really thought of as lockdown though. It was seen more like spring break 2, and once people got news of the spring break extension, they went even deeper into the degenerate activity they were on. Dudes went from playing Fortnite all day to living in Salty Springs, from scrolling TikTok 8 hours at a time to becoming e-girls, from drinking all night to drinking all day. What I'm saying is that 2 weeks off from all responsibilities hit different and gave people way too much free time. This was also the time when social distancing first started to be enforced, but in the case of being bunkered down with Tony, social distancing wasn't really a possibility for us. We just played PS4 and drank smoothies all day, and it was probably the peak of my life. While the world was just starting to burn, me and Tony had an unlimited strawberry supply at his house for the infinite smoothie glitch. But that lifestyle would come to an end quickly. After the week passed, I had to say goodbye to my paradise with the homie Tony. It was time to get on home and have my first day of the lockdown lifestyle. By the time week 3 of lockdown rolled around was when people started to realize that this shit was real shit, because public school had officially gone virtual at this point, and ain't nobody about to do all that. I was dodging these virtual assignments as if they didn't have real world consequences. I was just too deep in the Fortnite grind. I had to get the Ronaldo skin. It wasn't just me though. I don't know a single person who didn't just drop school altogether after attempting their first online assignment. But what really sealed the deal on dropping school was when I shaved my entire head bald, because there's no way I was about to show up in a Zoom call with my monkey looking head ass. So I just opted out of school to avoid the humiliation. This may just be my collective friend group I speak for here, but every guy I knew shaved their heads bald at this point. 3 weeks locked in the bedroom had us on the same mental stability as the Joker. We were all going insane. We saw this as our life's only chance to be bald without social repercussions. But crossing that 2-month line is when we all truly started to deteriorate as humans. There's no easy way for me to say this next part, but the lack of physical activity had me gaining some weight. And coupled with my new hairstyle, I was unfortunately fat and bald at 18 years old. My sleep schedule was just as bad as my haircut too. I was going to bed at sunrise and waking up at 3 p.m. like Batman. The amount of nights I'd try and pull an all-nighter in an attempt to save my circadian rhythms, only for it to completely backfire and make it worse, is beyond me. And just as my sleep schedule couldn't withstand 2 months of lockdown, my grades could not withstand 2 months of missed assignments. My report card was failing all across the board. But about this time was when the most historic moment of the lockdown happened. The school board started stressing that this year's grade point average was gonna be a 0.2 and had no choice but to pull the plug. So they officially announced that every assignment beyond lockdown didn't count towards final grades. I remember just how joyous this news was to me, and considering considering how everything else in life was falling apart, it hit different to hear some good news for a change. I guess you could partially thank me for not doing my assignments and saving all of America's GPAs collectively. So when the school year eventually ended around month 3, summer break made absolutely no difference on our lives. This is when the weeks really started to blend together and things got bad. That social isolation was really starting to get to me at this point. Spending every waking moment grinding my life away for Golden Peely was bad for my mental. It got to the point where I now have no memory of even my family during quarantine. I have no clue what the people in my own home were getting up to. The only change I made in my day-to-day was eventually switching from Fortnite to this game called Fishing Planet, and that was definitely a downgrade that reflected my mental state. At this point, I felt like I was really starting to fail as a human being. I don't know if anyone else would do this, but after staying indoors all day, I needed to get outside. So every few nights around midnight, I would just walk around dark and empty neighborhoods by myself. Those late night walks all alone through empty neighborhoods in an attempt to get outside started to hit deep. So I decided to get myself a job for the summer. So after doing a bit of searching, I eventually found a car wash that would take me. I worked there for a solid week or two before I just stopped showing up. I didn't last very long re-entering the real world. My time indoors had my mental discipline deteriorated. Coupled with the fact that I was still fat, I was working outdoors in the Arizona summer sun, and the whole time I had to wear a mask, it just wasn't something I could do. The only thing that got me through those shifts was watching Avatar on my lunch breaks because Netflix had just added the show. But Ninye, you only didn't enjoy quarantine because you spent your time poorly. That is true. Most of us spent quarantine rotting and probably didn't do shit when we could have been out hustling. If I went back, I probably would have read a book or two. Get my intelligence up, you know? Maybe I wouldn't be so stupid if I did that. If there was a tier list for things to do in quarantine, gaming all night would probably be a C. Sleeping all day would probably be D tier because that never feels good. Eating terribly like I did would be an F because being unhealthy like Rick Ross like that is just a terrible feeling. And not exercising would probably also be an F because it's just gonna get me built like Rick Ross even quicker. But it is what it is. And now that I say it all out loud, I don't think I particularly missed the COVID lockdown. The next few months that followed weren't all that different from the last few that already weren't that great. It's like looking back on it, all the pain and misery just despawns from our memories, and all that remains is how we had nothing to do. It's easy to compare any kind of work we have to do now to the whole lot of nothing we had to do then and wish for it to come back, but that life is just not sustainable. And also millions of people died because of COVID, so that's also a downside to consider. Either way, that's the video. Subscribe. Bye.